This is Whitney Warner, and this is my lesson presentation mastery assessment. My target audience for this lesson was a 5th grade Spanish dual language class. This lesson was delivered in Spanish, but for the purposes of this assignment, I will be giving the instructions in English. 50% of my class are native Spanish speakers, and the other 50% come from other home languages. Most of this 50% speaks English at home, but others speak Polish, and I have one student from India. My class is culturally and ethnically diverse, and this lesson was given in the virtual learning platform since all students are at home and receiving lessons through Zoom. My lesson topic is Thurgood Marshall and finding the main idea. Students will be able to identify the main idea and supporting details in the text. They will also be able to participate in a discussion about the life, work, and effect of Thurgood Marshall. For this lesson, we will participate in an assessment where students will complete the same activity that we modeled in class with the teacher in a collaborative group setting using a different but related text. Okay, welcome students to class. Today we are going to start our shared reading lesson. In this lesson, you will be able to identify the main idea and supporting details of a text, and you will be able to share your ideas in a discussion about the life, work, and effect of Thurgood Marshall, and also hear the ideas of others in that discussion. So today, again, we will be learning about and discussing an important man of color who did important things for our country. We will talk together about how his life affected our lives today and what current issues we see that we think that this man would still be fighting for if he were still alive. We will have a discussion that is safe and values the perspective of each person in our class. I want you to think and talk about what would help you feel safe to share your perspective, and what can you do to help others feel safe to share? Let's talk about that now as a group. So in this part of the lesson, I am already starting off with a discussion. Students will be able to discuss using the principles of radical pedagogy, where every perspective is heard and valued. And this is supported by the article by Hooten in 2012. Again, students will be practicing 2 habits of the mind, which is taking responsible risks and listening to others. This is supported by the writings of Costa in 2020. All right, class, we are going to watch this short video about Thurgood Marshall and his life before we get into our reading. As we watch this video, I want you to be prepared to have a quick discussion as a class answering this topic on your screen. So the prompt says, it is important to learn about people of color who have made a difference in the world because... Okay, so this part of the activity is, first I give an informal background video. This will provide scaffolding for students who might struggle later on to understand the text, especially because the text is in Spanish. So this is an English video, and it'll set students up for success, giving them a solid background and vocabulary that they will use in Spanish later on. Students will also participate in a discussion about why this topic is important to learn, which will pique interest and increase engagement throughout the lesson. Okay, now that we had that great discussion as a class about why it's important to learn about Thurgood Marshall and other people of color who have made a difference, let's talk about the main idea. Practicing finding the main idea is something that we do a lot in 4th grade. And I want to hear from you. Why is finding the main idea important to you? Why is it a skill that we need to be able to apply to our lives, to anything that we read in the future, in the real world? So here in this part of the lesson, the multiple discussion elements you are starting to see come from the social learning theory. And that theory states that students learn from social experiences. We read about this in McLeod, written in 2016. All right, so now that we had those great discussions, let's dig into our text. I would like you to open your books and go ahead and underline with me as we read these important details of the text. Anything that answers the who, what, why, how questions, we are going to underline because we know that those are very important details. So in this part of the lesson, you can see on the screen that I have already underlined some of the details, but this is something that I would actually do on my document camera. I would read it with them, and then we would be underlining together as we read. So my connection here is again to the social learning theory that we read about from McLeod, and it says that modeling the desired reading behaviors will help students learn through observation. This theory states that we learn primarily through watching others and observing others, and so modeling this behavior fits perfectly into that theory. Again, we will continue to read the text and underline these important details together as we read. All right, so now we are getting into our core concept, boys and girls, of what we want to be able to do. We talked about why finding the main idea is important, so now let's practice doing it. I have 3 details that I put into this graphic organizer. We have detail 1, detail 2, and detail 3. These are things that we underlined together as we read that text about Thurgood Marshall. Now, we are going to take those details and we are going to think, what holds them together? What do these details have in common? If I had to say, using these details that we found in the text, I think the main idea is, so you can see here in this chart that all of our details are going to connect to the main idea. So I want you to think, maybe jot down in your notebook. You could, if you are a visual learner, you could write this down as we have our 3 supporting details that all connect to the main idea text box at the top. So let's take a minute to think about this, and then we are going to craft a main idea using your ideas that you write down on your own. So here we can see, like using the multiple intelligence theory, that visual learners need to be supported by something visual. And there are many great visuals that support main idea. This is one that I have found to be simple and very helpful, that just ties in 3 details from the text and shows how they connect to the main idea. This is going to be especially helpful for our visual learners and also provide scaffolding and modeling practice for our other learners. Okay, and now that we found our main idea and we supported it with those details, we are going to go into breakout rooms. You will be with one other partner, and we are going to do that discussion that we talked about earlier. Please remember those things that we talked about how to have a safe discussion where you feel safe to share your ideas, but you are also working hard to share or to listen to the ideas of others. And as you do that, I want you to first write down your ideas on the left, and then as you listen to your partner, I want you to write down their ideas on the right. Here there are several connections that we can make to our learning theories. First, students will analyze and question current social realities, which aligns to the critical pedagogy that we read about by Letizna that was written in 2014. Again, we are using sentence stems, which are a helpful scaffold for learners who might need support in using language to articulate their thoughts. Also, asking students to write down what their partner shared will aid in their ability to empathically listen to others, which is one of the habits of the mind that we are practicing in this lesson. Okay, finally, we are going to get into our group work. This is where you are going to show me that you are able to put into practice the concepts that we practice together as a class in this shared lesson. So I know that you will be able to read a text with your group, find the main idea and details of that text. You will also be able to discuss your perspective with your group and hear the perspectives of others. So I want you to read the text, underline key details in that text, fill out the graphic organizer that looks just like the graphic organizer we filled out together, and find that main idea. And then, using the same structure that you just did with your discussion with the partner, you are going to discuss the questions as a group, which are, again, how did the life of the person that you will be reading about, how did that affect my life? And what current issues do we still see that that person would still be fighting for? A connection here is that students will participate in exploration. They will explore other influential people of color, just as we did together with Thurgood Marshall. They will practice finding the main idea and participating in a discussion, which is taking that responsible risk of sharing their idea and then also listening empathically to others and practicing those habits of mind. I will be visiting the student groups in order to clarify concepts and misconception by providing feedback and guiding questions. Tell me why you think that is a supporting detail. Tell me how that supporting detail relates to the main idea. Guiding questions like that so that they are thinking critically about the work that they created. Also, students will recall information and behaviors that were just modeled for them in the shared lesson. This will boost retention through retrieval practice, which we read about in the article written by Lee in 2019. Here are my references. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson and all of the ways that I was able to connect this topic and these objectives to the theories that we have learned about in class. Thank you.